What's happening, guys? Joe Clem 15 coming at you again. Here to put in my 2 cents about this racial debate between Manny fighting black fighters. The thing about this, for me to address this, I have to address what's being said, because frankly I think that while this is an argument, I feel like people don't realize that it's being diced up into 3 or 4 different arguments. Why hasn't Manny ever fought a black fighter? It's false. He has fought black fighters. He's fought Joshua Clottey. He's fought some other African opponents. There's no question that Manny has fought black opponents. Now, he's never fought an African American or a black American, or whatever you might say. Now, what's significant about that, when people have a demand for Manny to fight an African American fighter, why and what do they mean? Some people think it's a sense of superiority or supremacy within African American boxing in terms of perhaps athleticism and capability. An athleticism that can match up with a ridiculous athlete like Manny Pacquiao, because from what I've seen, Manny Pacquiao has never been matched in terms of athleticism. So some people are crying out, like, why?
Now with the customer, please go to service dealing for a service tunnel.
Some people might be calling for him to fight somebody who could match up on him on a physical standpoint. Okay. Other people are saying, why hasn't he fought? They want him to fight an African American, but instead of they're using the word African American to describe the word as slick, because we're accustomed to viewing slick fighters as African American. So while people might say, why hasn't he fought an African American, what they really mean to say, why hasn't he fought a slick fighter? And so that's another thing. People can say, it's hard for me to put words into other people's mouths. I don't understand what exactly everybody is saying. Some people, it seems like they're saying, oh, we need him to fight a slick fighter regardless of race. We want to see him fight a slick fighter, whether it be anybody. It doesn't matter what race they. Some people are saying we want him to fight an African American, whether they're slick or not, because he hasn't been in there with an African American. Some people are saying they want him to fight an African American who is slick.
Beat Department down 1308.
Now, the interesting thing is, when it comes down to slick, I think it gets even more confusing than people just saying slick, because Manny himself is slick, and he has been in there with slick fighters, a couple. But what people don't need to understand is that he's never been in. There's a difference between a slick fighter and a slick boxer. Black, white, yellow, red. Manny's been in there with some fighters with some slickness, but he's never been in there with a slick boxer. And there's a difference. And I've threw some names together to give you guys a depiction of what a slick boxer is and what a slick fighter is. And this is just my opinion. This is not really something I've documented. This is from what I see. I would say that a slick fighter is a Devin Alexander, an Aaron Pryor, a Manny Pacquiao. Okay, these to me, that's what I call a slick fighter. Slick boxers are Whitaker, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Larry Holmes, Willie Pep, James Toney. Okay, so those are slick boxers. Okay, and then there's a category that I think people don't really mention, because it's maybe a branch off from pure boxing, and that's technical fighters. And he has fought technical fighters. He fought Juan Manuel Marquez. And I think that's a difficult style for him. But I think the most difficult would be a pure boxer. a slick boxer, and he hasn't fought one. Now, is that his fault? Honestly, I can't say it is. I really can't say it is. One, because coming up in the weight classes, that he's from these lower weight classes, African Americans or slick fighters in general are a rare breed. Not only because of the time period that we're in, but also because of the weight class. Not a lot of African Americans are making their presence felt in featherweight, bantamweight, lightweight, and then just in general, it's just rare to see slick boxers or pure boxers in the sport. Period. Let alone in lower divisions. However, I do think that Roach is aware of Manny's perceived vulnerability to slick boxers, and I do think that Roach would feel more comfortable that Pacquiao not go up against them. Now, when we turn to, let me give you guys a little bit of a timeline. We go back to March 3rd, 2008. Pacquiao gets a split decision over Marquez in a close fight that personally I feel could go either way. No robbery. From there, what's up, man? They move up in weight and fight at lightweight. Now let's rewind back to March 3rd. 5 days later, March 8th, Nate Campbell defeats Juan Diaz in an upset, becomes a unified lightweight champion, IBF, WBA, and WBO. Arguably the king of that division. And oh yeah, he's a slick boxer. Towards the end of that month, on March. Towards the end of that month, on March 22nd, Casamayor beats Diego in a rematch, and excuse me, my bad. Actually, that happened in 2006. In 2006, Casamayor beat Diego Corrales and became the ring-recognized lightweight champion. And then in 2008, he retained that title by beating Katsides, who was undefeated. So the lightweight recognized king was Casamayor, and the unified champion of that division was Nate Campbell. These were the top dogs, and arguably, people bring up Zahir Rahim, which is the guy who dominated Eric Morales before Eric Morales had that rematch with Manny, and Manny knocked him out. People say, oh, he avoided him, but the truth is, Rahim was just a contender within the lightweight class. He was just a contender. Not only, he may have once he beat Morales, he was an established contender, but even after that, in 2006, he lost to Freitas, and then eventually in 2008, he got knocked out. So I can't really say that he ducked Rahim, but I for one do feel like his handlers, Roach and Arum, said, you know what, Casamayor is a slick boxer, more of a technician, a more talented technician than most, and they were like, probably wouldn't be the best fight. Nate Campbell, the unified lightweight champion, another slick boxer, they probably like, not a good fight. So they have Manny move up and fight David Diaz. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but in my other video where I talk about why we shouldn't boycott the fight, people put a lot of emphasis on what Manny should do, but I'm telling you, with his promoter, okay, with Bob Arum as his promoter, he has no say in what he gets to do next. You know what? I take that back. He does have a say.
Left waiting on 5.
But it's not going to be taken, if Arum feels like, you know what, you're going to make me money, I need you to win, and I need you to go up and wait and fight somebody who I know you can beat, that's what's going to happen. And especially since David Diaz is under top rank. That's a Bob Arum fighter. Yet again, it's not a new thing with, Claudio, Cotto, Margarito. David Diaz, keep the money in house. It's Bob Arum economics, whatever you want to call it. Manny doesn't have much of a say in his career path. You know, if he wanted a greater challenge, I think Nate Campbell would have been a better challenge, and I think Casamayor would have been a better challenge. But his handlers did not want him to go against those people, and I think it's very convenient that those two are slick boxers and don't allow him to fight the kind of fight, or probably would not allow him to fight the kind of fight that he would, want to. You know, then of course Marquez goes up to fight lightweight too and knocks out Casamayor. But so after that, after he becomes lightweight champion, he didn't spend any time in that division defending his lightweight title, against Campbell or Casimir or whatever. He moves up to fight De La Hoya. In terms of that fight, I don't even get bothered by that fight. It's not even, it's if there's anything that gets on my nerves, it's when people try to compare that Oscar De La Hoya fight to Mayweather's Oscar De La Hoya fight, where you have two completely different Oscar De La Hoyas. But in terms of people getting upset with Manny for taking that fight with De La Hoya, joining himself, as somebody, if you're gonna get your biggest payday, and your trainer knows that you're gonna whoop somebody's ass because they're gonna come down dramatically in weight, take the fight. I mean, it's common sense. I can't blame anybody for not taking that fight. So, but when it comes down to it, Manny hasn't fought an African American fighter because there's a limitation of African Americans in the weight classes he's been in, and he hasn't fought a slick boxer because they're a rare breed these days. But when he had the chance to, when it made sense for him to, I don't think he dodged them. I think his handlers dodged that because it didn't make sense money wise or competitive wise. So in a sense, both sides of these arguments are correct in a way. Manny has purposely been weaved around a style that would most likely give him problems, and Manny has also just been inconvenienced with how he's been brought up in weight classes, his handlers, and there just happens to be more Hispanics within his divisions. Not only that, but there's been more consistency of fighting styles as opposed to slick styles in the weight classes he's been in. I don't think that this should ruin his legacy, but I mean, it's kind of hard. I have mixed feelings about it, especially after Mosley tried to get a fight. He's a slick fighter, but I would say he's a slick fighter. I wouldn't say he's a slick boxer, but he's an African American, so you can see how some people might get upset. Like, hey, he hasn't fought an African American either. So there's like, I guess a bit of everybody has a good point. So it's kind of hard for me to refute anybody's point. But in terms of Mayweather, I put him into a class of a technician, a very versatile technician, and so that's why people are, that's a very much anticipated fight between Manny and Floyd. Looking forward to it. Hope this here helps clarify some things. Peace.